Now, contrary to what many people believe, America is not the only country where mass shootings have happened. But we are the only nation that consistently does nothing about it when they do happen, even when it happens in schools and claims the lives of young children. Is this time going to be different? That is the question everybody wants to know. Joining us now is Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat from Connecticut and one of the leaders of a bipartisan group of senators discussing gun reform legislation. Senator Blumenthal, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening. You have said, sir, that you are more hopeful than you have been since Sandy Hook about the prospect of real action on guns right now. As one of the senators involved in this process, talk to me about the bipartisan gun reform proposals that are in front of you and in front of your colleagues. Why are you more optimistic now? Why is there now any reason to believe that Republicans are negotiating in good faith on gun reform?
I am more hopeful. Thank you for having me. But we need to be very clear-eyed about the history here. I've been working on this issue for the entire time, 12 years that I've been in the United States Senate. And before that service is Attorney General of the state of Connecticut. But this time really does feel different because of those shouts. Do something. I've heard them for the last 4 days that I've been in Connecticut as I went to Memorial Day ceremonies and parades. And there is something about how America has reacted and how shaken my colleagues have been. We've never before had 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, as we do right now, talking seriously about substantive and meaningful efforts and proposals that will make America safer and save lives.
Sir, we know that this group began the talks last week. There was a plan to continue the talks remotely today. Can you just give us a general sense of what the conversations are like? How did today's meeting go? What are some of the proposals that are being batted around?
The main proposals, from my standpoint, involve red flag laws. I've written a law with Senator Graham, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, a Republican, and I have a statute that we've proposed which would separate people from guns if they say they're going to kill themselves or somebody else if they're dangerous. And an extension of background checks would be very meaningful. Likewise, safe storage laws. Connecticut has an Ethan's Law named after a young teenager who was killed because a weapon was unsecured in a neighbor's home where he was playing. And likewise, these kinds of proposals that involve school security, mental health, all of them are on the table, and the substantive discussions are serious. So I think it's important that we continue to pursue it. I'm hopeful. I couldn't come to work in the morning if I weren't hopeful.
No, fair enough. I think also some of us, though, that are following politics know, we've seen a lot of, attempts, bipartisan attempts, but not necessarily good faith negotiations from the Republicans, not on just gun reform, but on a lot of things. And I respect your optimism, but I want to ask you about one of the excuses that Republicans have used. And you take a senator like Senator Cornyn here. He's one of the many Republican lawmakers who have suggested that improving access to mental health treatments might be a facet of tackling the country's gun violence epidemic. We've heard that a lot over the last couple of days. I mean, while the whole nation could likely benefit from increased access to mental health, I definitely agree with that. Is that really the key issue when it comes to gun violence? Because I know there's a 2018 FBI report on active shooters found that only 25% of shooters between the years of 2000 to 2013 had confirmed diagnosable mental illness. Do you consider the topic of mental health in these talks about gun reform a red herring?
Not a red herring, because the country needs more mental health care. We're in a mental health crisis right now, partly as a result of the pandemic and partly because of factors that existed before it. But our children particularly need more behavioral health care. Alone, mental health care just isn't the answer. And we're going to go as far as we can to try to save lives. That's the metric for me that's important. But common sense, sensible measures to save lives are what's important. And I am very clear-eyed about the history here. I'm far from optimistic in any Pollyannish way. And let me be very blunt. It's put up or shut up time for Republicans because they have a job. It's United States Senator. And if they fail to do their job and vote on common sense solutions, then they ought to be out of a job. And ultimately, gun violence prevention is going to be on the ballot this November.
So really quickly, Senator, I know most legislation obviously needs 60 votes to get past the filibuster in the Senate. That means the new gun legislation you guys are working on would require 10 Republican votes. Do you really think you'll be able to get those 10 votes? Because we've seen this where something comes out of bipartisan negotiations where there's a group of 5 Republicans, but they can't even sell it to their own caucus to get an additional 5 if those 5 initially agree on it.
We're attempting to frame this legislation, red flag laws, which are now in force in 19 states. They need the funds to implement and enforce effectively. Our red flag law that Lindsey Graham and I have forged, I think, could get 60 votes. Likewise, the safe storage measure that we know saves lives. There's evidence in Connecticut from the laws that we've championed that they prevent gun violent death. And domestic violence is another one that is involved. So I think we can get to 60 votes, but obviously we're not going to do as much as we want. They're going to have to be compromises.
And we certainly hope you can get it done before another mass shooting or even before an election. Senator Richard Blumenthal, sir, thank you so much for your time. Democrat from Connecticut and one of the leaders of this bipartisan group of senators discussing gun reform legislation. Thanks again, sir, for making time for us this evening.
Thank you.